Hi, this is Maria at the Feeling Better Compulsive Gambling Addiction Podcast. I'm glad you're here. If you haven't yet listened to my first introduction episode, I encourage you to go catch that one first. You can find more information about me, my book, which is available on Amazon, and some resources on my website, which is thefeelingbetter.com. Warning, my website is so obnoxious. For real, I wanted to do something colorful and eye-catching that resembled slot games, and the end result was just a big old hot mess that feels like Cyndi Lauper circa 1984 threw up all over it. It's fine though. Remember, I did everything myself in a span of 6 weeks, from writing, editing, and publishing, to putting together my website, to launching this podcast. I really try not to think about the fact that the money I lost could have paid for a couple of really nice, relaxing vacations, which I so desperately need right now. But hey, since I've got the 80s theme going, Calgon can take me away, right? And now, for Chapter 1, Week 1. 10-4, good buddy. If you're a Gen Xer like me, then you know those words very well, spoken by truckers across America on their CB radios. You might have heard it on Smokey and the Bandit, or the Dukes of Hazzard. 10-4 is CB radio code for understood, or got it, or received loud and clear. Ironically, it's also the passage of a Bible verse that I leaned on heavily once I stopped gambling. 2 Corinthians 10:4 says this: "The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have the divine power to demolish strongholds." What does that mean exactly? I'd mentioned before that my gambling addiction was unquestionably an attack by the devil. Yours is too. He knew precisely what was going to cause me to stumble, to fall, to question my value, and to slip in my faith. I also previously described how, in order for us to win back our souls, our self-control, our finances, and our peace of mind, we have to engage in a supernatural fight. The Apostle Paul, who is also known as St. Paul in the Catholic Church, was a follower of Jesus and one of the most important figures in Christian history. In that verse from 2 Corinthians, and also in Ephesians chapter 6, Paul tells us that we can't fight the supernatural fight with typical human weapons like guns, words, swords, or fists. It's not that kind of fight. The devil's stronghold isn't some kind of physical door or fort that you can kick down or send your big muscle bodybuilding friend to go rough up. You can't actually see Satan's stronghold. It's a spiritual fortress that, because it's invisible to the average human, seems impenetrable. Yet Paul tells us we have the divine power that comes from God, and we have to tap into that in order to defeat this attack by the enemy. Now, historically, in wars that occurred throughout time on this planet, the two opposing forces had battle plans. They strategized and implemented a specific plan of attack designed to defeat their enemy. You can bet your best purchase that Satan's got his own battle plan for you. He knows exactly where you're vulnerable. He knows how to sneak in through the unguarded areas of your mind. He's been studying you your whole life. And when he decided to make his move with a surprise attack, he pulled out all the stops. His intention was to take you out. You have to understand that right now, Satan is smug and victorious, believing he got the best of you and that you're down for the count. He's probably already planning another hit. Every time you think about gambling or consider logging into the app and depositing more money, he's there whispering from his spiritual realm, nudging you to do it. I remember countless times praying to God, asking him for help. Towards the end of my addiction, when I was praying my most anguished, fervent prayers, I specifically cried out and said, "Lord, it feels like I'm this beaten, battered, practically unconscious victim that's lying on the ground in a bloody, defeated heap. Help give me the strength to endure it." Here's the thing, folks. I didn't simply want to put my guard up and defend myself against future blows and attacks by Satan. Nope, I wanted to go on the offense. There came a point where I got so mad about this whole thing that I wanted to fight back, to take back my life, and to kick Satan in the cojones and bring him down. Make him realize that it wasn't worth it to mess with me, that he didn't have the power to defeat me, that he was better off just leaving me alone and moving on. Every time I prayed for the strength to do that, the Holy Spirit that resides within me provided little nuggets of advice and strategies that I put together into a formal battle plan of my own. I then used that battle plan to rise up, get back on my feet, and fight back. And it worked. Why didn't God just kick Satan out of the way or take care of him on my behalf, you might ask? Well, think about it. Would I be here right now helping you and dozens, maybe hundreds, perhaps even thousands of other suffering addicts down the road if I hadn't gone through this? One of my all-time favorite videos that I played over and over and over again during my lowest times was a church sermon you can find on YouTube as well as on Spotify. It's by Pastor Craig Rochelle of Life Church in Oklahoma, and it's called A Purpose in Your Pain. Thank you, Pastor Craig, for all you've done for me. It's unlikely he'll ever see this or know how grateful I am. But if it weren't for his videos, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Watching that message was a pivotal turning point for me. He spoke the specific message back in 2020 during the COVID crisis, so there are references to that. But his words are just as powerful and meaningful today. The premise of it is that we humans don't like pain. Well, correction. We don't like pain without a purpose for it. As Pastor Craig explained, women will go through childbirth and endure the pain for the purpose of having a baby. Runners will endure the pain of a marathon for the purpose of accomplishing a huge athletic feat. But it's those times when you feel acute mental, spiritual, or physical pain without understanding the reason behind it that hurts the most. Sometimes God allows the devil to attack us in order to fulfill a bigger purpose. For the longest time, I couldn't understand why I was going through this devastating addiction. I mean, to put it bluntly, this gambling addiction wrecked every part of my life. It brought me to my knees, literally. And then I listened to that Life Church message, and it was an absolute game changer for me. It was at the point that I realized not only would I make it through this, but I would make it through this for the better. Like that pun? I understood that there was a reason why I went through all that agony and defeat. God, in all his mercy and grace, helped me to see my purpose for this epic fall. I promise you will see yours too, whatever it might be. Even if you aren't a Christian, I encourage you to find that video and watch it. Or pop in your earbuds and just listen to it. For the very first time, after endless weeks of true despair, I'd found a spark of hope in that message. I understood that sometimes God allows the enemy to attack us because something great is going to come out of it. Think about this for a moment, folks. Most people aren't moved to make life-changing, world-impacting decisions when their days are comfortable, leisurely, and stress-free. The kind of change that completely alters the course of your life or impacts the world usually involves some kind of pressure, stress, or pain. You can't make diamonds by pressing a piece of coal between two layers of soft cotton, my friends. Diamonds are created with a whole lot of heat and pressure. I always thought that my gambling habit changed my life for the worse. I was angry, confused, frightened, and even a little mad at God for allowing this horrible thing to happen to little old me, a simple housewife who worked hard, never did harm to anyone or anything. But I was so wrong with that kind of mindset. This season of trial and turbulence ended up changing my life for the better. Why? Because A, I have a newfound understanding and appreciation for life that I didn't have before. Remember, I started off feeling sorry for myself that I didn't have kids and lost my pet. My mind refused to see all the goodness that surrounded me. B, I'll never again take financial security or freedom from addiction for granted, and you bet your barnacles that I'll be way more generous and giving from now on. My goal is no longer financial freedom. Instead, I want to do a better job of storing up my treasures in heaven. We'll talk more about that in later episodes. See, I'm so much closer to God now because of this experience. I no longer pray lukewarm prayers like, Lord, help me to have a good day today. And Father, I pray I nail this presentation at work. And God, please bless this food you've given me. Now my prayers are deep, communicative, heartfelt, raw, and truly, truly thankful. And most importantly, D, I'm now here assisting you through your trial. That's honestly the greatest thing to come out of this experience. I have a real passion now for helping to lift other addicts out of their dark pit, handing them weapons and battle plans to fight back against their own attacks by Satan. Whether you're a Christian or not, whether you even believe it or not, you are getting attacked. Once I realized the strategy I'm going to outline here for you really worked, that God had given me weapons to use in the spiritual battle, I understood that I needed to share this with others too. God had me go through this so that I could help strengthen those who are enduring the same kind of attack. We're soldiers in this war together. So I'm going to give this war plan to you, to walk you through it week by week so that you can come out victorious. Understood? Here's where you can say 10-4, good buddy. You guessed it. I'm calling the plan that the Lord gave me to share with you the 10-4 plan. It's a 10-week strategy that addresses 4 critical areas that can and will defeat the enemy and help you to have long-term, successful recovery from the damage and pain your gambling addiction caused. This plan is actionable, it's effective, it attacks the issue from several different sides, and most important of all, it will help you heal in every way, whether you're a Christian or not. In the end, after 10 weeks, you'll know freedom from the torment of guilt, shame, and temptation. You'll know your value. You'll feel good again. You'll have hope again. You'll have lost the desire to gamble, and you'll be on the path to financial recovery. And at that point, you'll continue forward with a whole arsenal of weapons that you can use at any time to continue on the path of victory against your addiction. Again, we're going to be working in 4 distinct areas for the next 10 weeks. I fondly call these areas battle plans. The 4 battle plans we'll be working on in detail each week are the following. 1, the enemy's playbook. We're going to identify who Satan really is, how he attacks, and the lies that he's told you over the course of your addiction. Like me, I imagine you not only fell for those lies, but now you're telling them to yourself. All Satan had to do was tell them to you once or twice, and then you took over. You've been brainwashed by the enemy, and we're going to fix that. 2, God's intel. I'm going to show you the truths and the reality about you and your situation from God's perspective, to give you hardcore intelligence about your addiction and provide some factual evidence that counters the enemy's lies. Most of all, I'm going to present you with your dossier, biblical truths about who you really are, because it's likely you either didn't know or you'd forgotten. 3, weaponry. You'll get practical steps to stop gambling and claim the power to say no and resist the urge to bet. Several of these will be ways you can use the power of your smartphone for good rather than for evil. I don't know about you, but more than once I felt like throwing my phone against a brick wall or flushing it down the toilet. Let's take that phone and make it your weapon so that the devil can't use it against you anymore. 4, armor. The repeated blows of Satan's attack have left you physically and mentally weak. When you're weak, that means you don't have the strength to fight. Just like when new soldiers enlist and go through boot camp to prepare them physically for combat, we're going to work on healing both your body and your mind so that you have the strength to rise up out of this pit of darkness and conquer those demons. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you get up and do calisthenics or run a track. What I lay out for you will be much easier and far more effective for the battles we're going to fight. At the end of each chapter, I'll also be handing you a specific battle box to use each week. Every battle box contains items that you can pull out in time of need or in an emergency. You can use them all every single day to get you through, or you can just pull out 1 or 2 a week when you're having a tough moment. Some of these suggestions will probably make you cry or break down or feel a lot of emotion. That's okay. That's what they're for. They're intended to help you flush out everything that's been built up inside you so that you can remove the fog of deception and the veil of self-doubt. Towards the later chapters, as you approach the end of the 10-4 plan, the battle boxes will contain items that are uplifting and will help raise your spirits as you continue forward. My advice is to not go out of order with the battle boxes. I've placed these in precisely the right order for them to provide the maximum impact. Most of the things I recommend are going to be Christian-based, but that doesn't mean that if you're not a Christian, you won't benefit from them. I still urge you to give them a try. What do you have to lose? You're here for a reason, right? Use every tool that I'm providing because ultimately, in the end, you want to be healed. I know you want to win this war. Why not utilize every weapon in the arsenal? The more you choose to arm yourself with, the greater the chances of a huge victory. I'm not asking you to go to church or get baptized or walk around declaring yourself a Christian. I'm just asking you to listen to a song or two, or to watch a video message, or write something down. I promise it'll be a lot less painful than losing $1,000 on a casino game. More on the battle boxes later. Are you ready to dive in? This is week 1, day 1. Before we begin, I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. 1. Will you allow me to pray for you? As a Christian, I believe in the power of prayer. One thing I always do is pray before I go on a trip of any kind, whether I'm flying or driving. I pray for protection and safe passage and alertness to danger, as well as a productive, successful journey. So, as we embark on this particular road into battle, I would like to pray for you. Father God, I come before you today to pray for the one who is starting today on their new journey of recovery from their gambling addiction. We understand that this is an attack by the enemy, and we also understand that you allowed this pain for a specific purpose. I humbly ask for the protection of this individual, that you would shelter them and comfort them in your arms as you guide them to a place of healing. Give them the strength and the mental fortitude to commit to this plan, the wisdom to understand the bigger purpose you have in their pain, and discernment to see the devil for what he really is. You put this person in my path for a reason, Lord, and I don't believe in coincidences. I pray the words in this podcast and my presence in their life will impact them so completely that in the end, they will emerge from this battle in great victory with more joy, more strength, more clarity, more security, and most of all, more peace than they've ever known before. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. The second thing is to decide to stop today. I told you in the introduction to be prepared to listen to this first episode with the mindset that you're going to quit gambling immediately. Today will be your day, and going forward, it'll be your anniversary every year. The very first thing you need to do is pause this podcast and go into every app you gamble with and self-exclude yourself from them. Most of the apps allow you to do a period of 1 year, 5 years, or forever. Choose forever if they have that option, but if not, choose the 1 year or 5 year exclusion. Do this task now. I don't care if there are 30 apps out there that you could potentially play or have accounts with. Even if it's going to take you an hour, just go do it. You've spent more time than that gambling, so taking 30 or 40 minutes to initiate this first step is nothing. Just go do it and then come back. Once you've done that, I'm also encouraging you to install a gambling blocker app like Gamban, Bet Blocker, or Freedom if you want added protection against any temptation. Then, once you've self-excluded from all your sites and you've got your blocking app in place, the last thing I want you to do is install a real-time calendar app such as Sobriety Clock by Nomo that will track the time since the last moment you bet. There are a few different clocks and trackers out there, but that's the one I use. When you go into the Sobriety Clock app, register your username, confirm your email, and then set up your clock. They have an option for you to name your clock as well as to choose the gambling sobriety. I decided to name my clock Journey Back to Life. Name yours something positive and uplifting if you'd like. Mark your time right now, unless you've already stopped gambling and have a previous day you want to enter as your last moment of gambling. The third thing I want you to do is to find a place where you can take notes or jot down ideas and start formulating your plan in writing. It's going to be your battle book. I'm a tech gal, so I use a Word doc on my laptop. But you can use a physical notebook or even the Notes app on your phone. Maybe you have a beautiful leather-bound journal that you've never used. Or you might even want to go out to the dollar store and pick out a special notebook to use for this specific purpose. I even have some blank pages in the back of the print book that I've left purposely blank to write in for those who have the book, which makes it easy to keep everything in one place. Whatever you choose, you're going to need to write some things down. It doesn't have to be formal, but it does need to be something you can easily access. I want you to take notes and refer to them along the way. The key is to just pick something you know you'll use. You can even download a notes app or some kind of journaling app if you think that would be more helpful. Daily or weekly journaling is a cathartic way to get your feelings down. It's pretty amazing to see the rapid shift in your mood and mindset after only a couple weeks. One added tip I'm sharing here that I don't have in the book, because I thought of it after I published it, is to consider your voice memo app if you aren't the kind of person that likes to write. I don't know if Android phones have this, but I'm an iPhone gal, and my phone has a voice memo app. I can record and store voice recordings that are date stamped, and I can rename them. I've been recording my own journal for almost a decade now using the voice memo app, and it's a really easy way to journal if you aren't keen on writing. You can also journal with emails to yourself or by typing in a Word doc. Rules are there are no rules. And if you don't know what movie that's from, we can't be friends. Kidding. Mostly. Now let's begin. Week 1, Battle Plan. The Enemy's Playbook. See and discern the spiritual battle. What was your breaking point? What was the moment when you knew, without a shadow of a doubt and with every fiber of your being, that you had a problem and that you needed to stop immediately and get help? My final ordeal began the night of January 9th and ended on January 10th, 2023. Here's the thing. As I put together this plan and shape out my book and podcast, I'm really very excited to share all the tips and tricks and guides to help you quit. That's the easy part of this. The hard part is sharing all the gruesome, horrifying details of my own downfall, desperation, and despair. The shame and guilt and regret at the height of my addiction was so intense that I'm not even sure I can think about it all again, let alone write it down. But you need to hear it, and I've got to get it out there. Putting this all out there in the podcast sphere is going to be cathartic, I think. I still suffer from bouts of mental self-flogging, where I just abuse myself with a whole lot of regret and name-calling for all the money that I've wasted or lost. But God puts a stop to it pretty quickly and reminds me that I'm here for a purpose, and He'll take care of me. So I'm going to show you how to get rid of those negative feelings too, and share with you what He shared with me. The first thing to remember is that negative or self-depreciating thought patterns are what invites the devil into your life. It's like a secret code that you're giving him to unlock the door to your heart and your mind, allowing him to slip in, take a look around, and settle in as he finalizes the game plan for his attack on you. You don't want that. You want to shut him out. The best way to close and lock the door on your enemy is to be full of joy, to give God praise, and to call on the name of Jesus. If you aren't a Christian, then just stop with the negative, anxious, regretful talk and try to keep your thoughts positive. Even if it's something as silly as saying, well, at least I didn't lose more, that's still a positive statement when compared to, why did I have to lose so much? It's not being flippant. Believe me, no one has any illusions about what we lost. It's simply training your mind to keep the devil from using your own thoughts against you. He has to work a heck of a lot harder if you're only ever thinking positive, joyful thoughts. Anyway, Back to my lowest moment and breaking point. It was late afternoon, and I had just finished work. Despite me making promises 2 months earlier to my husband that I would never ever gamble again, I found myself slipping back into a couple hours each day of playing online slots. I'd lost quite a bit of money that week and managed to self-exclude from all the apps but one. Up until that point, I'd only implemented short, month-long cool-off periods. These are time periods typically lasting 30 days when I can't log into the app or play. I'd finally learned my lesson with that and went into all the apps to self-exclude for good. Except for one. I still had one casino app left that I was able to play. I had no limits in place, and it was an app that had all of my favorite games. Essentially, the only slot games I ever really played that I got hooked on early were the ones with the step or progressive jackpots. These were games that had 3 reels and 9 pay lines with 4 or 5 tiers of varying jackpots that would increase in amount until a player landed one of them. You could win one of the smaller jackpots by getting 3 mixed gems in a row, or a bigger jackpot by landing 3 red gems in a row or 3 blue gems in a row, or whatever. There were 5 different versions of that slot game with slightly different variations, and I'd often go back and forth between them all trying to land one of the jackpots. The lowest jackpot was only about $150, but it could fluctuate anywhere between $125 and $400, depending on the game. You never knew exactly when it was going to hit, of course, but you had an idea because the lowest one paid out with some regularity when it approached its payout limit. If it got close to the level that you knew it tended to pay out at, you had a shot of landing it. Of course, so did everyone else who was playing. When that lowest level jackpot got close to its payout limit, the dollar amount of the jackpot would progressively increase at a faster rate because more gamblers played with a rapid-fire intent to win. The more that played and the faster we all spun, the quicker the jackpot number increased. The second level jackpot paid out between $250 and $1,200 depending on the game. The third, fourth, and fifth level wins had jackpots that paid out between $1,300 and $100,000. Those were the most unpredictable and could take several days to sometimes weeks to hit their limits and pay out. Anyway, on that Monday in the late afternoon while my husband was working, I had deposited yet another $500 and began playing. Within a few hours, I found myself in a very rare streak of hitting multiple jackpots, and I was up to $4,500. Delighted at the wins, I initiated the withdrawal. That was going to pay a lot of bills. I was in the hole about $2,000 just that week, so in reality, my profit, for that week at least, was about $2,000. Still, it could catch us up on all the late payments on our credit card bills. Later that night after we went to bed, I couldn't stop thinking about how effortless I seemed to build that bank up, winning 9 times my initial deposit. Never mind the fact that I'd been playing those same games for months, spending thousands of dollars without winning much. As I lay there in the dark, my brain had forgotten all about what I'd lost in the past and only focused on what I'd won that day. Typical gambling addict, right? I couldn't fall asleep. I was over the moon. I wanted to check my withdrawal, maybe start thinking about the budget plan for paying some things down. I was so excited that I stealthily crept out of bed with my phone. This was not the first time I snuck out of bed during my gambling addiction. My hubby is a deep sleeper, so it wasn't hard to do. I went into the living room and sat on the couch looking at my withdrawal. This particular casino, despite the fact that over the last 6 months I deposited tens of thousands of dollars and played a ridiculous amount of bets, still required up to 48 hours to process my withdrawals. More on that in a bit. Of course, unable to resist the urge to gamble and having no other money left to deposit, I canceled and reversed the withdrawal. I promised myself I'd only play a few $100s. By 4 a.m., I was exhausted but almost giddy with excitement. I had miraculously hit 2 more jackpots and built my bank up to $8,000. I couldn't believe it. I had prayed and prayed and prayed for God to help me end this nightmare once and for all, without mountains of debt. It wasn't exactly life-changing, but it would definitely change our financial trajectory. That month, I'd missed our credit card payments and owed on all of them. I could pay off a couple of credit cards completely and even set aside some emergency money. I could catch up on buying some household items that we desperately needed. For the last couple of months since I broke the news to my husband about my gambling addiction, we'd been extremely frugal and austere with our spending in an attempt to get our finances back on track. With this win, I could give us some breathing room. It was the kind of win that I only ever dreamed about, my biggest yet. I knew compared to some winners out there that it wasn't a massive win, but for our humble household, that amount was monumental. I went back to bed, groggy and gritty-eyed, but at peace. God had blessed me, and I was so grateful. I thanked him over and over and over. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. The next morning, I was sing-songy and happy. We were going to be able to pay off some of our debt. I couldn't stop thinking about that. I was so grateful. What a gift. It was more than a few months' salary. I knew I'd have to deal with the tax implication next year, but for now, we were saved. I just had to figure out whether I was going to tell my husband or not. On one hand, I didn't want to continue keeping this from him. On the other hand, he honestly prefers not to know the details about our finances. While not clinically diagnosed, I've always suspected my husband was on the spectrum of Asperger's, a very mild form of autism. For him, ignorance is bliss. He detests anything having to do with numbers, math, or any task that requires attention to detail and accuracy. He's a brilliant savant, but he's the artistic type. His mind is genius when it comes to grand vision, entrepreneurial business, and networking. Not numbers, though. After I initially told him about my gambling, he continued to leave the household financial responsibilities to me. So I figured it wouldn't be a big deal if I just kept it all quiet and paid off some bills. He would prefer it that way versus knowing I was still gambling. Plus, I fully intended to stop once and for all from that moment on. All my other apps were shut down, and my intention was to shut this one down as well once the withdrawal was processed. After I initiated the withdrawal, I promised myself and God that would be it. No more gambling. I'd end this whole awful experience on a high note and walk away for good. As soon as my withdrawal cleared, I would self-exclude from that remaining app, and it would be all over. And then the addiction took over once again. You know where this story goes. Now that the withdrawal was bigger, the casino needed up to 72 hours to verify my win and process the withdrawal. During that time, I could cancel and reverse it just like I did previously. Why I didn't implement a play dollar amount limit or a play time limit right away, or initiate a cool-off period so I still had access to track my withdrawal, I'll never understand. I knew that's what I should have done. I even thought it in my head, but I didn't do it. I guess I just didn't want anything to impede the withdrawal process, and I was scared to change anything about my player status. It was a stupid reason. I wish to God I would have done something, anything, to limit my ability to play. Because as you probably guessed, I ended up reversing the withdrawal once again and continued gambling. I played that $8,000 down to zero. You know how it goes. I tried to go after one of the bigger jackpots and of course didn't win it. Within an hour, I'd lost $2,000. And at that point, I just wanted my $2,000 back, so I began chasing the loss. I chased and chased and chased until I was down to the original $4,500 I'd won. I should have stopped there, just accepting the loss and keeping some money as profit. But I was so distraught over losing $4,000 that I just had to try to get it back. Chasing losses never works, folks. Never, never, never. Trust me on that. It always burns you. Most of you probably already know that, though. Pause with me for a sec here, dear friends. Imagine that you're in a grocery store or a restaurant or walking down the street and some nice, altruistic, wealthy individual comes up to you and says, "Hey there, you know what? I'm going to bless you with a gift today. Here's $8,000 in cash. I hope this makes your day and it helps you out in a big way." Then that person proceeds to hand you a thick stack of green $100 bills. What would you do next? Besides jump up and down screaming with excitement, that is. Would you then take that $8,000 and throw it away in the nearest trash bin? No way. Inconceivable, right? Or imagine you have a real wood-burning fireplace like we do. On one cold morning, you decide to start a fire and you look around for some kindling. Not seeing any, would you go grab a thick stack of $100 bills, crumble them all up, and use that to start a fire? Not in your life. Never. That's totally ludicrous. So why then did I turn around after only a few hours and cancel my entire withdrawal just so that I could have that $8,000 back to play with? And why, with no regard for the value of money or the kind of life-changing impact that would have had on us, did I turn around and gamble it all away again? If you're someone who has a severe, debilitating gambling addiction the way I did, you're nodding your head because you've been there before. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The regret I felt afterwards was so deep and gut-wrenching that I couldn't even stand to think about what I'd done. To this day, it rips me apart to think back on it. It could have fixed our financial mess in so many ways. There's some malfunction in my brain that didn't see my winnings as cold hard cash. Rather, it was just tiny white numbers on a phone screen. It didn't seem real. Had someone actually handed me the cash, I would have dropped everything and taken it to the bank. But in this instance, I guess my brain only saw it as play money, monopoly money. I don't know. I have no real explanation for any of it. As a side note, I think one of the most despicable business practices the casino apps allow is the ability for a player to cancel their withdrawals because they need time to process it. I mean, once they have all your contact and financial info verified and approved, there's absolutely no reason why a withdrawal shouldn't be instantaneous. Sure, I can see if you won some major amount or a ginormous jackpot over $25,000 or something like that. I can justify that as possibly requiring a bit of extra time to verify the win, but an $8,000 withdrawal when I've deposited and played tens of thousands of dollars previously? No way should it take more than a few minutes. Even if they set a $5,000 instant limit per day or something, at least I could have had the $5,000. Banking apps like Zelle, Venmo, and PayPal move that kind of money instantaneously all the time, even without all the verification documents that we've provided to those casinos. Might I have deposited again and continued playing even if that money had been instantly transferred to my account? Maybe, but maybe not. One thing I do know is that I definitely would have used most of it, if not all of it, to pay down some bills. Once it was in my bank account, I would have had an easier time closing down my account on the app and self-excluding once and for all. In all reality, now that I give it some thought, never once did any of my deposits to those casino apps take more than 10 seconds to become available for play. Yet several of them will tell you it can take up to 3 days to approve and process your withdrawal. During that processing time, they allow you the convenient option to cancel and reverse it. If nothing else, even if they do legitimately need 3 days to process it, you shouldn't be allowed to cancel and reverse your withdrawals. In my opinion, it's one of the most outwardly direct, in-your-face gimmicks that enticingly and specifically harms problem gamblers. I'm ashamed to say I've done it way too many times. I feel like someone should initiate a class action lawsuit for that very shady business practice. I would be in far less debt than I am today if that feature hadn't been available. Just for the sake of transparency, I've canceled over $15,000 in withdrawals in one app alone. Is there even an option to turn that off? I don't believe there is. And if there is, I certainly didn't know about it. I can't believe that those casinos have gotten away with that, especially knowing that the only people who are going to use that feature are compulsive, addicted gamblers. In this instance, just like all the other times I reversed my withdrawal, I didn't listen to any thoughts that might have prevented me from doing it. It was almost like I was on autopilot. I had zero regard for what I was risking. But once I'd lost it all, I felt absolutely horrified. The pain and realization of what I'd done hit me like a Mack truck. It knocked the wind out of me. I began to hyperventilate with the beginnings of a panic attack. So why did I do it? Why did I cancel the withdrawal and keep playing, even if I knew I was probably going to lose it all? Because the devil is very cunning with his lies. He's got a playbook of lies specifically designed for you to knock you off balance and create fear, uncertainty, and doubt, otherwise known as FUD. The lie that Satan whispered repeatedly in my ear that moment was, wow, that's great that you won $8,000, but when you think about it, it's just not enough. Not even close. You need way more than that to fix the financial mess you made. $8,000 when you're $30,000 in debt isn't even going to pay down half of it. You definitely can't work or earn your way out of this, and you won that so easily. It's a gift from God, and you're on a winning streak. He'll continue to bless you with wins, so you might as well try for another jackpot. I bet you can win that other $6,000 one. You saw the 3 gems almost hit a few times, and that's a sign somebody's going to land it soon, right? Might as well be you, because then if you have $14,000, you can really pay off a lot. Plus, think of all the money you'll tithe. Instead of giving $800 to the church, you'll then be able to give $1,400 to the church. God would want that for sure. Of course, I believed that nonsense, even though I knew in my gut that I wasn't going to win another big jackpot. In fact, from that moment on, I knew in my heart that I would never, ever win another jackpot ever again. I also knew that what God wanted was for me to stop, once and for all. But I didn't listen to God. Instead, I listened to the devil. And of course, I played that entire $8,000 down in a matter of hours. When I spun the last time down to zero and finally came out of my zombie-like trance to realize what I'd done, I could almost hear Satan laughing and clapping his hands in glee. Once again, I fell for it. No, what had I done? I couldn't possibly have gambled the whole thing, could I? Did that really just happen? Wasn't there some way I could get it back? I knew there wasn't. I felt dizzy, panicked, sickened. My heart began to pound at the reality of the situation. My chest felt tight and I began to sweat. I had just gambled away an $8,000 withdrawal that only a few hours before had been scheduled to land in our bank account by the end of the week. Disgusted with myself, I opened my banking app to see what our bank balance was. This is the moment every gambler dreads. What you probably already know if you're a gambling addict is that those casino apps make it super easy to overdraft while gambling. Most of them offer what's called VIP ACH e-check that allows you to instantly deposit using your bank account without any kind of verification that the funds are there. You get a limit to what you can deposit right off the bat. With each deposit, the VIP e-check system will initiate an ACH withdrawal from your bank account that might take a few days to process. My e-check limit was $1,500. So even if I didn't have $1,500 in my bank account, I could still deposit it and worry about it coming out of my account later. Most casino apps also offer deposit with PayPal, which again makes it easy to overdraft. You can deposit money via PayPal with your linked bank account, and often the charge won't come out of your account for a day or two. If it's a Friday night or weekend, it could take even longer. A year ago, I never ever would have considered purposely putting our checking account into overdraft. The idea of a $100 overdraft would have been extremely concerning for me. But while I was gambling, I made casino app deposits one after another, without any thought whatsoever to overdraft situations or fees. I can't even begin to add up how much I've paid in overdraft fees since all this began. It literally felt like I was possessed, as if something or someone took over my mind as I typed in the request for a $275 deposit or a $300 deposit. In fact, it got to a point where my frequent casino deposits became such a problem that I had to devise a system to keep track of them all. I had to know what was still due to come out from our checking account versus what had already come out. For example, I couldn't just make a bunch of $200 deposits repeatedly over the course of a week. If I did that, then I wouldn't know which ones cleared and which ones didn't. So I began using very specific numbers. A deposit of $174, another deposit of $329, another deposit of $246. You get the idea. That way I could maintain some semblance of understanding what I had available in my bank account, even with e-checks or PayPal deposits that were still pending. I knew when I logged into my bank account that it was going to be in a negative overdraft situation. I'd been depositing via ACH e-check and PayPal all week. But what I saw on my phone at that moment made my heart stop, and I instantly felt nauseated. Bile rose up in my throat. Our bank account balance was negative $1,800, and that wasn't counting the $500 that I deposited the night before. By the next morning, our account would show a balance of negative $2,300, probably more with fees. Here's where the real shock came in that made me violently shake with terror and anxiety. It was Tuesday, and payday for us was on Friday. We got paid every 2 weeks. The problem was, I'd put us in the hole more than what we were going to get direct deposited into our account that Friday for payroll. That meant we wouldn't even have a single penny for another 2 weeks, despite getting paid. Our credit cards were maxed out. I'd taken out every single loan I could possibly get. The last loan I'd gotten the month before had been a payday advance loan with over 700% APR. That's right, I borrowed $1,800, and by the time I managed to pay it back, I'll have paid almost $8,000 with interest. As I mentioned, my husband knew all about my gambling problem, of course. I'd confessed it to him months earlier, but he thought I'd stopped. In fact, I promised him I'd stopped. He had no idea our finances were this bad and that I was still gambling. We were literally penniless. And the thought of that $8,000 I had just gambled away made me physically ill. The only saving grace was that our utilities, internet, and cell phone bill were paid up, as well as our mortgage. We had food in the house, and we both worked out of our home, so there was no need for gas money to commute. I could lie, yet again, and make up some excuse about why I wasn't going grocery shopping like I usually do after payday. Still, the realization of what I'd done caused me to immediately run to the bathroom and retch. I vomited over and over again until I was completely spent, sobbing with anguish and emptiness. The entire time I had my head over the toilet bowl with tears streaming down my face, all I could think about was what a miserable, detestable excuse for a Christian I was. I truly believed that I didn't even deserve to still be breathing. I'd never hated myself more in my entire life than I did at that moment. The self-loathing was palpable. I couldn't understand how I'd gotten to that point. I hadn't known at that moment that Satan was watching me, laughing in triumph over his new victory. At that moment, I couldn't even stand myself. The despair was overwhelming. I got up off that bathroom floor and with shaking hands, shed my clothes and stepped into the shower. There, muffled by the noise of the water, I continued to sob with sheer desperation and hopelessness. I'd never known true fear and panic the way I did at that moment. I had to force myself not to hyperventilate. I had no idea how I was going to get us out of the financial mess I'd made. We needed that $8,000 in the absolute worst way, and I'd thrown it all away like it was chump change. I knew we'd have to declare bankruptcy. We wouldn't have the funds to even buy a gallon of gas, let alone pay even just the minimum on our credit cards now. Our savings account was wiped out. We were one small disaster away from being completely destitute, maybe even homeless. I cried and sobbed and called out to God with a grief and despair that I'd never known. Losing my cat back in the summer felt like a fun amusement ride compared to the torment and sorrow I felt at that moment. I didn't have anything left in me to form even coherent thoughts in my mind, and I was sobbing too hard to say anything out loud. Yet in my soul, I was begging God to help me. My prayers had no words. All I had were tears, anguished cries, and raw emotion racked with pain. I couldn't imagine why God would even acknowledge me at this point. No way was he going to answer any prayers. If I felt this disgusted by my actions, surely he was done with me too. I'd never, ever felt so lost, so alone, and so desperate to be rid of this addiction. Had I just put player limits in place right away once I initiated my withdrawal, my story would be much, much different. But I didn't do that. Instead, I listened to the devil's lies as he watched me throw away God's financial blessing that would have lifted me out of the mess I'd made. Satan knew he could snatch it out of my hands with a lie that if I just landed one more of those jackpots, then I would be in an even better place financially, and there was really no way I could lose. Let me be clear. It was a lie. Compulsive gamblers always say it's the big wins that take them down. That's the truth of it. So many times I promised God I would stop. That last time I prayed and prayed for a win, begging for some help in getting our finances squared away so I could end this addiction once and for all on solid financial footing. God, in His infinite mercy and grace, answered that prayer for me. Isn't that amazing? And so what did I do? I then turned around and threw it away. Thanks, but no thanks, Lord. I'm good. I don't want this because I really need more than that. Wow, unbelievable. I can't even begin to describe the sickening horror and regret I felt at realizing that's essentially what I'd done. That had been the third time I'd reversed a big withdrawal. I'd reversed many smaller ones during my time gambling, but there had been 2 other instances where I canceled and reversed substantial wins. This had been the last one. All 3 times I'd been panicked and desperate from losses. I got down on my knees to plead with God for a big win to help me out of my horrific mess. All 3 times I prayed and prayed and prayed, my face to the ground, my stupid cell phone in hand. And do you know what God did? He answered my prayers all 3 times. And all 3 times I'd reversed the withdrawal and lost it all. I was much like Peter the night Jesus was arrested before he died on the cross. If you're Christian, then you know the story. Jesus had told Peter earlier in the night that he would deny him 3 times before the rooster crowed in the morning. And Peter was like, no way, not me, never. But after Jesus was arrested for claiming to be the Messiah and everyone knew he'd be put to death, Peter was asked 3 times by various people if he was one of Christ's followers. And 3 times Peter insisted he wasn't, that he didn't even know Jesus. Immediately after the 3rd time, though, when the morning rooster crowed, he realized the horror of what he'd done. I'm quite sure I know exactly how Peter felt. All 3 times I'd gotten on my knees to pray for a big win, God gave it to me. He is all-powerful, omnipotent, and He knew precisely what I was going to do with those wins. In Luke chapter 22, verse 61, Scripture tells us that after Peter denied Jesus 3 times, Jesus looked right at him. In fact, though, it doesn't even actually say Jesus like the rest of the chapter refers to Him. It specifically says the Lord. Only in that one instance of the entire chapter after Peter denied Christ 3 times and the rooster crowed, the verbiage changes so that it reads, "And the Lord turned and looked at Peter." After which Peter turned and wept bitterly because the realization hit him. He knew what he'd done. Despite how much he loved Jesus, and regardless of how strong he believed his faith was, he still messed up and did something stupid. So why did the words change to read the Lord? Because it was a reminder to us that Jesus is God, and that by denying Jesus, Peter actually denied God. In the same way, I felt that by handing Satan over the winnings that I'd prayed for and received, I too denied God. At that point, I honestly felt as if there could be no possible way God could ever love me again. I believed in my heart that I'd made too big of a mistake. I'd turned my back on Him 3 times, and now He was going to turn His back on me. Still, though, I prayed. What else could I do? I had nothing left. I had no one to turn to. My gut-wrenching, desperate, agony-filled cries in the shower were different than all those shallow prayers from before. I was no longer begging God for money or a big jackpot or a way out of my debt or even the strength to stop playing. This time around, my anguished spirit was begging God to help me defeat the demons that were attacking me. I pleaded with the Lord for His help to fight back because I was truly in fear that I was losing my very soul. I wasn't just stuck in a deep, dark pit. I was in the depths of hell, and I couldn't take it anymore. I knew that one more hour of that torment would break me in a way that would defeat me for good. I'm not saying I was on the verge of committing suicide, But there was no doubt that I wanted to be dead. My heart felt dead on the inside. My spirit was dead, and my faith was nearly dead. All I had left was the tiniest mustard seed-sized grain of faith to cry out to God. This time around, He didn't bless me with a jackpot win. Instead, He blessed me with something much, much more valuable. He blessed me with a glimpse of understanding and a spark of hope. Like a tiny light inside my chest, it flickered slowly at first and then grew steadily brighter. By the time I stepped out of the shower, violently shaking with the emotion of it all, I could feel God's Spirit speaking to me, showing me my plight through His eyes. The phrase that kept penetrating my thoughts was wisdom and discernment. I knew that He wanted me to step outside my pain and see the spiritual battle that was taking place for my very soul. God wanted me to see the lies that Satan told me and to understand just how false they really were. He also allowed me to see that He was holding out His hand. He wasn't just going to pull me out, He was going to lift me up, and I knew that moment would change everything for me. I only need to ask one question to end this section of the battle plan for week 1. Can you understand the war that's taking place for your soul and the lies that Satan is telling you in order to get you to break down and stay down? What lies has he whispered in your ear that you believed? Week 1, battle plan. God's intel. See and discern your true blessings. I woke up the next morning feeling like I had been in a car accident. My head hurt, my back and shoulders ached from the anxiety and vomiting the night before, and my jaw was sore from clenching it all night in my sleep. Worst of all, I was lethargic and groggy because I'd slept so fitfully. But I had something new that gave me a ray of hope after months of feeling trapped. God had given me a small glimpse into the enemy's playbook of lies. It kind of felt like those magic eye books from the 1990s. Remember those? If you're under 30, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. They were these images that were big old graphic messes that seemed to be completely abstract. But for those that knew how to look, it was an optical illusion you could stare at in a way that allowed you to see a hidden 3D object embedded in the graphics. A horse, a palm tree, a bunch of grapes, an ice cream cone, a whale, whatever. I was about 19 when I finally figured out how to see the darn things. I happened to be in a drugstore with a high school friend named Bobby. We were checking out a stack of framed magic eye posters, and I'd whined to him about how I could never make out the secret objects that were supposedly hidden within those things. In fact, I insisted they weren't really there, that people were just making it up. He beckoned me over, held one of the framed glass posters right up to my nose, and told me to stare at it with slightly crossed eyes while he slowly backed away from me. Suddenly, I saw it. I whooped and hollered, and he just laughed, putting the poster back down, while I gleefully went back through the stack to look at each one individually. From that moment on, I knew how to look at the magic eye graphics so that I could always see the 3D object clearly. On that last night of gambling, God gave me the same kind of special vision. That entire next day, I painfully relived the previous 6 months of stress, anxiety, and despair. I could see the trap that Satan initially laid out for me back in July while I was grieving the loss of my beloved pet and coveting other women's joys of motherhood. I remembered every single time that I blew through winnings when I should have withdrawn them, or those horrifying moments after I reversed a large withdrawal and proceeded to lose it all. I thought about our negative bank accounts, the maxed out credit cards, the endless nights of lost sleep, and the numerous lies I told my husband to hide my gambling problem. All of it formed a new 3D picture of the truth that I now understood. I was in the fight for my life, and up until that point, I had just curled up in a ball and let Satan pummel me, giving into his torment and abuse over and over again. He told lies and hurled insults and made me believe that God had walked away from me. But the reality was God was still there, cheering me on, willing me to get up and fight. For 15 years, Scripture had been training me, teaching me through church and through the words of Jesus how to stand up to Satan. I honestly thought that if and when I needed to stand strong against the enemy, I would be steadfast and courageous and a force to be reckoned with. After all, I'm the strongest woman I know, right? In reality, though, when my moment finally came, I was knocked sideways and then beaten to a bloody pulp without putting up a single bit of resistance. Instead of being my own Rocky or Karate Kid or Braveheart or even Rudy, if you don't know any of those, please don't tell me, you'll make me feel old. I ended up being the cowardly lion, giving in without any courage or fight. That understanding and discernment mind-boggled me. I'd always sworn to myself that I'd stand up for Jesus if I ever needed to defend him and fight for him, but I hadn't. I took beating after beating in what felt like the mother of all spiritual mugging attacks, and while I was getting beaten up, I believed there was no escape from it. I truly thought that I was going to die by the hand of my enemy because I couldn't see a way out of it. I was too broken and battered, both mentally and physically. My wounds were too deep. Satan had struck me too hard too many times. Yet it was at the very lowest moment, when I thought it was all over and I was about to be finished off, that God jumped into the ring and broke apart the fight, shoving Satan aside and pulling me up to my feet. I so badly want to insert a "cut me, Mick" line right here, but I'll refrain. As God held me up, I saw the love and the purpose and the ray of hope. I saw my attacker, and I knew that with God's help, I could defeat him. It was then that I vowed once and for all I was going to get out of this mess. I know I disobeyed God by being in the devil's arena to begin with. No Christian would download or log into a casino app without knowing deep down that it was the wrong thing to do. But we humans are stubborn and disobedient like that. The good news is, though, that nothing can remove God's love for me. Jesus covers my sins, and there is forgiveness. We'll talk about that more in future episodes. For now, all that I had to understand is what the book of Jeremiah tells us in chapter 29, verse 11. God has a plan for me, a plan to prosper me, not to harm me, plans to give me hope and a future. I was still living and breathing, which meant God still had a purpose for my life. He has one for yours too. I was still working, which meant I was still earning a paycheck. I still had so many blessings: a husband that loved me unconditionally, a warm, cozy, comfortable home on a pretty piece of land. I had cats that thought I was their world. My vehicle was paid off with no car note. I had food in my pantry. Our utilities were paid up. I still had internet, a cell phone, and somehow our banks hadn't yet shut down our accounts, despite so many times of being in the negative. I had my health. I hadn't yet had a heart attack or a stroke. It was still only January, meaning we were only a couple of weeks into the new year, and I could still have a fresh start and begin with a clean slate. Each morning brought longer days, more sunshine, more warmth. My path forward was bright and clear. I just had to follow it. I couldn't stop thinking about the new hope I had inside me. I knew for certain that God had grabbed a hold of me and told Satan, enough. Romans 8:31 states, if God is for us, who could be against us? I've heard and read that verse dozens of times before, but never truly understood what it meant. Now I did. It meant that Satan cannot defeat God, ever. Big casinos cannot defeat God, ever. And no man can defeat God, ever. So, God took his stance on my side of the battlefield and equipped me with a plan of attack. That meant I cannot be defeated either. Now, I'm going to be showing a little of my Gen X with this one, but if you're not a Gen Xer, I'm sure you'll still get it. At the end of one of my favorite movies called Thunderheart with Val Kilmer, his character Ray and his sidekick Walter Crowhorse were being chased down by the feds, who are the bad guys in this movie. Ray's instincts, fueled by his own Native American blood and the spirit of his ancestor Thunderheart, told him to run for the stronghold, a place that he believed was a place of safety. When the two of them got there, they immediately found themselves cornered with a vertical rock wall behind them. The bad guys pulled up and surrounded them. As you watched the scene, You think for sure Val Kilmer's character messed up badly and made a mistake. There was no way out, and the bad guys were going to kill them. But then, right at the last moment, a huge, formidable line of Native Americans from the local reservation appeared over the crest of the rock wall, guns in hand, pointed down at the enemy. They had arrived to save Ray and Walter Crowhorse, and from that high position, there was no way they could lose. You then understood why it was called the Stronghold. It felt a lot like that for me on the first day after my defeated meltdown. I had been backed in a corner, nowhere to go, no escape. Satan had closed in on me and came in for the final kill. But then God showed up, in the ultimate position with all the power. I knew then that if I kept the faith and stood firm to fight, I was not only going to survive, but I was also going to win. From that moment on, I was going to rely on Him, not big wins or jackpots. God had taken up a stand on the stronghold with me, to fight alongside me as I began to formulate my own offensive attack to push the enemy away and make him run. The lies were transparent, and I could see them for what they were. Now I knew the truth. What are your truths? Are you able to discern the spiritual battle going on right now with you as the prize? Can you see that God is trying to pull you up to your feet and is ready to stand with you against the enemy? Do you have it in you to regroup and fight back? Can you see your blessings? Take a moment to think long and hard about what you're feeling and what you know to be true. Week 1, Battle Plan, Weaponry, your Vision album. From then on, once I'd self-excluded from that last app and began to write down and journal all the truths to reflect on in place of the lies, I realized I needed to find a productive way to use my cell phone whenever I felt the urge to gamble. Shutting everything down was the easy part. Pushing past the withdrawal symptoms and urges of addiction was going to be harder. Even though I knew I couldn't play if I wanted to, I didn't want to feel even the slightest temptation to gamble, in case there was some backdoor way I could get into the apps or find some new way to gamble. I needed to put those feelings behind me once and for all. As I began meditating on God's wisdom and formulating my 10-week plan, I came up with one of my favorite ideas that I'm laying out here for you to do your first week. This particular weapon is a powerful one because it taps into your creativity, your emotions, your desires, and uses visualization. I understood that to jumpstart my abstinence from gambling, I needed something that was more than just reading a book or listening to a podcast. I needed something to do on my phone with my fingers that invoked the spark of dopamine that gambling gave me. I loathed the idea of finding other games to play. They all now felt like a waste of time. I didn't want to waste any more time, any more money, or fall into some other kind of technology addiction. I just wanted to do something that was positive and inspiring, but also fun. Thus, the idea of the Vision photo album was born. Right now, after you finish listening to this section, I want you to stop the podcast and create a new photo album on your phone called My Vision Album. Going forward, I want you to take screenshots and save any and all photos of whatever makes you feel good that you would like to have in the future. This could be anything from motivational quotes and Bible verses to pictures of the way you want to remodel your basement or a tropical vacation you'd like to take someday. I know this is kind of a chick thing to say, but think of it as the Pinterest board of the kind of life you'd like to have. I don't want you to actually use Pinterest or any other kind of third-party app. I want you to use your phone's photo album because these are your photos. They belong on your device, not on someone else's website or in the cloud. I want you to be able to access this album whenever and wherever you are. I don't mean for this to be some kind of new age doctrine of creating, attracting, or manifesting your own world of new wealth and prosperity. This has nothing to do with wealth. This has everything to do with the power of positive thinking. What you think about is what you bring about. Like attracts like. Think more positive thoughts or focus on more positive things, and you'll begin to experience a more positive life. I'm not insisting that having faith and being right with God produces a life of prosperity. I'm living proof of that, obviously. I'm also not saying fill your vision album with fancy cars and mansions and lots of bling. What I'm saying is find pictures that make you smile. This album should contain photos, screenshots, or videos of things that make you feel joyful, peaceful, and grateful. Things that maybe you've already experienced or want to experience. Make an album of the things you'd like to do, see, accomplish, feel, achieve, believe, experience, and enjoy. For example, if you're like me, you might already have 25,000 photos in your photo app spanning the last decade. I told you I was a mild hoarder. If so, that's a great place to start. Go through all of your photos, whether they're past memories, vacation pictures, screenshots of quotes or memes, or a pic of that really sweet mountain chalet that you always wanted to whisk your spouse away to for a fun ski weekend. There are no holds barred here. Have fun with it. Want to hear a crazy story? That first week of no gambling, when I decided to put together my own vision album, I began going through the thousands of photos I already had stored on my phone. I initially selected about 100 photos to add to my new album. Lots of them were quotes and Bible verses that I'd saved over the years. I also selected photos I'd taken of beautiful, healthy meals I'd made from scratch, and I chose some of my favorite vacation photos, selfies I took with my husband, screenshots of the way I wanted to one day remodel our kitchen, pics of me running 5Ks and 10Ks, pictures of rainbows and funny candid shots of my cats. I added a photo of that time I was all dressed up with a new hairstyle for a special event, a snapshot of the top of a small mountain I'd hiked. You get the idea. And in the middle of all those pictures I selected in one big batch, I also chose a portrait of Jesus that I had on my phone. You know the one. It's the painting of Jesus painted by Akiane called The Prince of Peace. Born in the Chicago area, Akiane was only 8 years old when she painted that remarkable portrait of Christ. I love looking at it, imagining him giving me a big hug and calling me daughter, just like he did to the woman who bled for 12 years after he healed her. That story is from Luke chapter 8. So I took my 100 or so pictures, which included that photo of Jesus, and added them as one big batch to the new album I created called, of course, my Vision album. Take a guess at which picture my phone automatically assigned to the cover photo for that album. Yep, you guessed it. The portrait of Jesus. That was no coincidence, I assure you. At first, you might feel at a loss as you come up with things, but believe me, it'll get easier and become a pleasurable way to spend time on your phone. I added dozens of screenshots just that first week from scrolling through social media. In fact, I started to look at my news feed not with the intent to see what others were doing or to catch up on news, but to spot things that I wanted to add to my Vision album. I added all kinds of photos to my album, pulled from a dozen different sources. Raised garden beds I'd always wanted, a new she shed that I'd like to build someday, a motivational quote about overcoming the odds, a Bible verse that made me feel strong and loved, a picture of the Northern Lights, a new crossbow that I know my husband would love to get as a Christmas gift, a picnic by a beautiful waterfall, a pretty bouquet of flowers, a receipt for the time I donated a nice-sized chunk to the local food pantry, a new haircut with highlights that I'd love to treat myself to. I even used a photo editing app to make myself an edited photo of my bank account showing $10,000 in it. Not $100,000, not $1 million. This isn't the place to be greedy or fall back down the trap of wealth and wanting money. I simply chose something realistic based on what we once had in our account. Now, I don't want you to be too concerned if there's a little part of your Christian soul that feels this might be a little bit too materialistic. The goal here is A, to distract you from wanting to gamble, and B, to set your mind on more positive things. That's it. If one of the things you'd love to have in your life is the time and ability to serve, then find a photo of someone handing out trays in a soup kitchen or the logo of your favorite charity. If you're like me and wasted your summer or favorite season gambling, then imagine doing all the things you'd like to do this next time around to make up for it. Go out on the internet and look for pictures of the life you want to be living this time next year. Fill your album with anything and everything that makes your soul feel good and makes you smile. It can even be funny cartoons or memes. One of my favorite photos in my vision album is a picture of my hubby sitting in front of the bonfire with sticky gooey s'mores all over his face. It's from one of the previous times we went camping, and it always makes me laugh. The last 2 times we went camping, I had snuck my phone out to gamble whenever I had a chance. I completely missed the opportunity to bond and share stories and hang out with him. I'm looking forward to doing that again. As you continue to add pictures to your vision album, I want you to scroll through and look at those pictures as often as you need to. Imagine yourself on that holiday vacation, or building that new man cave, or riding a horse on the beach with your spouse, or handing out money to strangers at Christmas, or standing in your newly refinished man cave, or picking ripe tomatoes out of your garden, or laughing with your kids. Let this be the place where you allow your imagination to run wild with all the possibilities your future can hold now that you're gamble-free. My vision album currently contains almost 500 photos. At any given time when I'm feeling the urge to pick up my phone and gamble, I'll instead pick up my phone and either scroll through some of the photos in that album or look for new ones to add. I'd say on average I look at that album maybe twice a day, primarily right before bed, when historically that was my favorite time to lie down and gamble on a slot game. Now, I lie down and scroll through my photos, grateful that I don't have to stress about losses or negative bank accounts or an all-consuming consumption that stole my life. I much prefer to look at all the opportunities ahead of me and envision my new life. Week 1, battle plan, armor, hydration. If your gambling experience was anything like mine, then I'm going to guess you didn't take care of yourself physically. I went from being a gal who loved to hike and camp and enjoy the fresh air of the outdoors, eating wild fish and making healthy salads from my garden, to a zombie that lay huddled up in a dark bedroom, barely sleeping at night and scarfing down whatever cheap food I can find in my pantry that was fast and easy to cook. When I finally confessed my gambling addiction to my husband, one of the things I said later to him was that I completely wasted my summer and fall. When I should have been out planting flowers or hunting for chanterelle mushrooms or on the patio barbecuing up some steaks, I was hiding out in the bathroom frantically spinning the slots and planning other ways I could sneak away on my phone. I spent countless hours in bed, which was my favorite place to gamble. Towards the end, I looked both bloated and gaunt, if that makes any sense. My hair fell out in clumps, my eczema flared up, I had headaches nearly every day, and I felt sluggish, tired, lethargic. I was undernourished, sleep-deprived, anxiety-ridden, and my mental health was a mess. I honestly can't believe I didn't have a heart attack or stroke from the many times I found myself spinning down to my last $20, knowing I'd put us even deeper into debt. With my newfound clarity and determination to free myself from this addiction, I understood that I couldn't fight a war if I didn't have the right armor. Before I could go on the offense, I needed to fortify my defenses so that both my mind and my body were impenetrable. That meant getting back to a place of good health. We can't fight the mental and spiritual fight if our bodies are depleted and weak. Therefore, one of the areas we're going to address each week as our armor is our physical and mental health. This first week, we're going to start with something simple but powerful: hydration. I don't know about you, but at the height of my online gambling, I could sit and gamble for hours on my phone. It would never even occur to me to stay hydrated, let alone eat. My gambling was all-consuming. Back in 2018, the World Journal of Psychiatry published an article that demonstrated drinking plain water and staying hydrated resulted in a decrease in anxiety and depression in adults. I personally can attest to the fact that headaches and mental fog plague me when I don't drink enough water. So for week 1, I want you to start committing to drinking 5 tall glasses of water every day. I'm not going to tell you how to make sure you do this. You're an adult. You know to do what works for you. Put a checklist on your refrigerator or bathroom mirror. Set an alarm on your phone. Fill up a big jug and set it on your desk while you work. Set appointments in your Gmail calendar or Outlook calendar to help you remember. Whatever it takes. I recommend drinking one of those glasses first thing in the morning when you wake up to hydrate yourself after a night of sleeping. Before you have coffee, before you take a shower or eat breakfast or brush your teeth, fill up a big glass of water, and drink it down. Picture your body thanking you for rehydrating it with clean, fresh, pure water, washing away the internal grit and grime of the day before. If you absolutely cannot stand plain water, at least strive for 3 tall glasses of plain water and add a little sugar-free Propel or Crystal Light drink mix to your water for the other 2 glasses. Diet soda does not count. Coffee and tea do not count. Juice does not count. Even sparkling mineral water does not count. Plain water. It'll make a huge difference, I promise. Commit to that every single day this week. That's it. Week 1 recap. Let's review and recap the 4 battle plans we're focusing on this first week. Battle plan, the enemy's playbook. See and discern the spiritual battle. See the devil's lies for what they are. One of the biggest lies you'll tend to believe as a gambler is that you can't get out of the circumstances you now find yourself in unless you continue to gamble more and try for the big win. That is completely untrue. It's a lie. If you continue to play, you'll find yourself deeper in debt and more miserable every time you deposit money and lose it. Satan is trying to take you down and keep you down. He's delighted every time you give in and gamble money away. Battle plan, God's intel. See and discern your true blessings. With the understanding that you're still alive, you're still breathing, and that God has a purpose for you, it's time to implement a plan. Set your mind to the task of overcoming and defeating the enemy by committing to doing everything I lay out here for the next 10 weeks. Going forward, we'll focus on the truths that we know about your situation, no matter how long you've gambled or how much you've lost. Battle plan, weaponry, your vision photo album. This 10-week plan will provide you with different ways you'll use your cell phone and technology to impact your life positively. In week 1, you're going to create your vision album. Whenever you find yourself bored, stressed out with anxiety, or itching to gamble, scour the internet for pictures of anything and everything that makes you feel motivated or that you would like to have in your future. Pull up your vision album and scroll through the photos as often as you need. Battle plan, armor, hydration. You can't fight this fight if you're weak, malnourished, and lethargic. We're going to prep your body for war. Start this week by committing to drinking 5 tall glasses of water every day, spaced throughout the day. Have your first glass right when you wake up, first thing in the morning. Set an alarm or a calendar appointment every few hours if you need to. This week's battle box. Ignore any other definition you know for the term battle box. The way I want you to think about our battle box in this recovery plan is to imagine Jesus handing you a box containing provisions to sustain you in an emergency. But instead of food rations or medical supplies or fire starter and a flare, your battle box for each week is going to contain 6 things. 1 video, 1 song, 1 quote, 1 Bible verse, 1 quick tip or trick to help you out, and 1 prayer. Over the next 10 weeks and beyond, whenever you feel distressed or anxious or upset, or you're feeling the urge to gamble, don't even hesitate. Go immediately to the battle box and pull something out to help you get through that emergency situation. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You are going to have times when you doubt your ability to stay strong. You are going to have times when you falter or stumble. Times when you wonder if God still loves you. Times when you feel anxious and depressed about your financial situation. Times when you have the uncontrollable, overwhelming urge to find some way to gamble or place a bet. Having self-excluded from all the apps will keep you from doing it. But leaning on the contents within your battle boxes will keep you from wanting to do it. The videos and songs I include each week can easily be found on the internet for free. Video. This week's video is the one I mentioned earlier, called A Purpose in Your Pain by Pastor Craig Groeschel from Life Church in Oklahoma. Just do a search for that on Spotify or YouTube. I think it even comes up in a general Google search. It's easy to find. If you'd rather just pop in your earbuds, you can simply listen. You don't have to watch. But I do suggest that you give it your full attention. I first listened to this when I was outside at night, sitting in the dark after praying. It impacted me more than I could ever explain. I had tears streaming down my face with the hope and the courage that it gave me. Song. Do a search for the song Cry Out to Jesus by Third Day. Play this as often as you need. I must have played it 100 times that first week. Quote, God loves you more in this very moment than anyone could in a lifetime. Bible verse. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Philippians 4:13. Quick tip. Disclaimer. I am not a doctor and this is not medical advice. I'm simply sharing what I did. Early on, I discovered a couple of articles that demonstrated how the supplement N-acetyl-L-cysteine, NAC, helps to diminish compulsive or addictive behaviors and reduce anxiety or depression that results from addiction withdrawals. NAC is a semi-essential amino acid that replenishes antioxidants and nourishes your brain. They refer to it as semi-essential because your body does make a little bit of it on its own, but the supplements are recommended. I suggest doing your own research. Personally, I take one 600 milligram in the morning and another 600 milligram dose in the evening for a total of 1,200 milligrams each day. I feel it really helped, especially early on. Prayer. Father God, I come before you humbly to first ask for your forgiveness. My flesh was weak. I gave in to temptation. I fell for the devil's lies. I broke promises and I wasted the provisions and blessings you gave me. I'm so sorry for not standing strong, even when I began to understand I was succumbing to the devil's trickery. But I know there's purpose in my pain. I believe that good will come out of this trial and affliction. And I also know that you will never leave me. You will never forsake me. Nothing can separate your love from me. In fact, you sent your son to die on the cross for my sins. And that means because of my faith, which is still within me, you will wash me clean and forget all of the mistakes and bad decisions and broken promises I've made. Thank you for giving me new life. And most of all, Lord, I ask that you would give me wisdom and discernment to help me continue to see the spiritual battle taking place for my soul. Fortify me with your powerful weapons and help me to defeat the enemy. In Jesus' name, amen.
Like holy water, like salt on a bird, rain in a drought, it's all over now. When daylight comes over the long night, open your eyes, it's all